Hello, my name is Dr. Hans Williams. I am the Program Director of Applied Health Informatics here at Stony Brook University. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for your interest in our program. So my goal for here today is to, in 10 minutes, describe to you a little bit about what our program does, students that we have enroll, and what the job opportunities look like. And also kind of to emphasize why becoming a health informaticist is probably one of the hottest fields right now in healthcare. That from my personal perspective, I think it has the highest growth trajectory and some of the most interesting opportunities in the short term as well as long term. So to go through a couple slides with you guys to explain a little bit about our program. But first, just some background on myself, which I feel is important to emphasize, is that originally I was a public health nurse, worked in a hospital, did bedside care, then got involved in clinical research and chronic pain, managing chronic diseases. And then once I finished with that training, got really involved in a number of digital healthcare companies that then opened up a lot of opportunities for myself as a health informaticist. So I made this transition from bedside care to becoming a health informaticist through my own general interest and passion as it relates to health data. Now, I mentioned this because there is no traditional route that one goes down to become a health informaticist. We have people in our program and outside of our program that have become very successful health informaticists, CIOs and CTOs of large hospital and insurance companies that were not first healthcare providers, that they weren't first a doctor or a nurse or a respiratory therapist or a physical therapist, but it could have been a career shift. Maybe they were working in business or marketing or some other aspect or some other industry, and then for one reason or another, got interested in healthcare and specifically health informatics and made that leap. So it's important for me, again, to just reemphasize that there is no traditional route for becoming a health informaticist. It doesn't matter if you're a doctor or not a doctor, we could still have a very large impact on the patients that we ultimately serve. So why health informatics? So just a couple points here to emphasize of why I made the comment earlier about why I believe this is one of the most exciting fields to be in and has the highest growth potential, both short-term and long-term. First off, we have a shortage of healthcare providers. Less than 1 million physicians, 3.8 million nurses approximately, and then a few 100,000 physical therapists. And then there's also, a variety of other clinical specialties and licenses that is not mentioned here. But when we then compare this to the ratio of the total number of patients that we're serving, 330 million plus, there are very few care providers to actually perform care, ongoing care, and preemptive and proactive care to, minimize chronic conditions and adverse outcomes, which leads to the second point, chronic illnesses. So this is kind of a scary fact, but important to emphasize here for us today. In the early 2000s, it was estimated that by 2030, approximately 50%, so 1 in every 2 Americans that are adults would have some form or some type of a chronic disease or chronic illness. Now that number was then updated in 2016 to approximately 80% pre-COVID. Now, depending on how the COVID virus goes and what are, what the sort of long haul syndrome looks like, that number can or could substantially increase. But overall, the trajectory here that we're looking at is relatively poor. That we have, again, point number 1, a shortage of clinicians. Point number 2, a growing number of chronic diseases and individuals living with chronic diseases. And point number 3, our healthcare system that we then deliver care through is very convoluted and complex. We have health insurance companies that are, both federal as well as private commercial. We have healthcare systems that are like the Kaiser Permanentes or the Mount Sinai's of the world that are integrated care delivery networks, but then we still also have smaller private practices. Then we have the sort of digital healthcare companies that are then trying to provide additional auxiliary care and potentially connect together patients between these different key players. So ultimately, we have a complex system that is trying to care for a growing number of chronically ill individuals on top of a shortage of healthcare providers. So what does this mean? So from my perspective, any solution that we are going to come up with that attempts to solve any of these problems is going to involve technology. And then what that means is that we are going to require health informaticists to help implement and understand how that technology can be best situated to solve some of these problems that we need to solve now. Our goal for students once they graduate from this program is to find themselves working as a health informaticist, either at a traditional healthcare system like a Mount Sinai, a Stony Brook University, Kaiser Permanente, if you're here in the New York area, or say a commercial plan, a health insurance company, could be a United Healthcare or a BCBS. Another avenue could be in a software company that specifically focuses on healthcare problems like a Health Catalyst, or a software company that is non-traditional like an AWS or Google, that have over the last couple years now, further emphasized their intent to engage and come up with solutions through their products for patients and care providers. So our goal is to match students based on their preferences to one of these four large buckets. And depending on the bucket, a health informaticist job can be called a variety of different things, whether it's project manager, a data scientist, a consultant, a variety of different terms that then change based on the bucket or the specific division that you might find yourself working within. So how do we get there? So a couple high-level notes about our program. It's a 15-month program, 48 units total, and it's a lockstep program. So that means that all students start and end at the same time. We have a fairly rigid schedule, so everyone begins and takes the same core classes in the summer and the fall. And then once students have successfully passed those semesters going into the spring, you then have an option of either doing one of two specializations, a data specialization or a project management specialization, which we will get to in just a minute. And then the program ends with a capstone, which is either an internship or a quality improvement project. For the internship, that's what we recommend for students that have never worked within the healthcare field. So you then get paired up with a local care provider, hospital system, and work approximately 30 hours a week for the final summer. Or if you are, say, a doctor or a nurse and you don't require a traditional internship experience, because you have 5, 10, 15 years under your belt already, we will then work with you to come up with some form of a quality improvement project that taps into the health informaticist skills that you've gained during our program to then implement some form of change within your system or your organization. Now, one of the key changes that we have implemented recently that you might have seen within our website is around a new high-flex model. So what this means is you have two ways of consuming the information within our program. First way, fully online and remote. You could take this program anywhere within the continental US, Alaska, Hawaii, or state territories, and be done in 15 months. Or if you are in the Long Island, Southampton area and want to opt in for our high-flex model, what that enables you to do is for specific courses that we've labeled as high-flex, you could physically come in to the classroom and consume the information that way. So two different routes for students to choose, fully online or high-flex. All right, so how do we actually go about this training then? So to focus on our two main areas of specialization, which is our systems management track and our data science track. Now, one of the common frequent questions that I typically get is which track is the best one, or which one should I do? And the answer that I always give is that both are important, and it should really be decided based on your interest and your initial passion of where do you think you would sort of want to find a position as your first job out of this program, whether it's more so on the project management side, or is it going to be on the data side. So as it relates to project/systems management, we cover sort of core fundamentals as it relates to general PM skills. How do you manage a project, whether it's an agile approach or a waterfall approach, systems life cycles of deployment to change management to deprecation, to budgetary planning. If we have a multi-year project, how do we stay fiscally responsible, knowing that there is human personnel needs, potential third-party vendor costs, as well as technology costs related to the refurbishing or the maintenance of those solutions that we've adopted, to general account management best practices. So I had mentioned third-party vendors. A lot of companies will outsource certain solutions to a third party. So it's then very critical for us to be able to understand how do we manage those third-party vendors to keep them on track and to keep them aligned with whatever the operational goals are for our organization and our agreement with that group. To data. So within our data specialization, we cover both the traditional relational database management tools or systems like MySQL and Postgres, to non-relational database management tools or non-relational management systems like a MongoDB or a DynamoDB if we're on AWS. So we cover both spectrums there of how do we actually store and persist information in a reliable way, to data languages. We cover both Python and R, as well as Jupyter notebooks that can be utilized to easily embed those insights or to share specific protocols or functions that we have created via these data languages. To EDA processes, how do we explore and try and extract value out of data that we might have within our system, to ETL pipelines, extract, load, and transform, to visualizations. Once we have a data set that's nice and cleaned, how do we tell a story around the information that we've captured? One key theme to emphasize, and this is where we have very strong beliefs, is that the future is going to be cloud focused or a hybrid focused environment. So when we teach, we always try and utilize some type of cloud-based technology, specifically for the data track, where the implementations of electronic medical records, for example, in the future is going to be hybrid. We will always have some need potentially for on-prem, but it would be silly of us not to take advantage of the resources that are offered by an Amazon or a Microsoft or a Google. So within our program, we also expose students to at least two open source EMR systems, OpenMRS and OpenEMR, and how we might go about deploying those on one of these three main cloud vendors. And then taking a deep dive into, okay, how is the relational table structure set up? How might we pull data via an API, or how might we go about creating a DR, or a disaster recovery plan or strategy for when our system gets hacked or there is some type of unexpected downtime? How do we quickly stand back up this mission critical system? So we believe very strongly that cloud is important and needs to be a key focal point moving forward. And last but not least, our faculty. So our faculty is very diverse and comes from a variety of different organizations. So again, going back to those buckets that I mentioned earlier, from traditional health insurance companies to modern digital small tech firms, we have faculty members that come from all of these different types of settings that you might work as a health informaticist. And furthermore, we have also established a lot of friendships with existing digital health companies here in the New York area, as well as outside of the state, that we work closely with, and we help them on a variety of different tasks. So the number of opportunities that we have available for students is quite vast, which then leads to where are our graduates now? All over the place. They are now found working at some of the largest EMR companies, to working at insurance care providers, to working at traditional hospital systems. So we have students that are now working at Mount Sinai, at United Healthcare, at Cerner, at Medtronic, at Allscripts. Pick a name, and we probably have a student that has at some point in time worked at that organization. So pretty good track record. Finally, to close off as it relates to next steps, so we have an ongoing enrollment for our program. So our application cycle will be closing April 18th, and it's on a rolling admission basis. So what that means is as applications come in, we review and we then offer admissions at that point in time. So we don't wait till the very end of the cycle to offer admissions. We do it on an ongoing basis. So admissions cycle will end April 18th, and then our next program will begin May 23rd. So if you are interested in filling out an application, please visit the hyperlink below. And if you want more information, my contact is on the main AHI website at Stony Brook. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions or follow-up. I would be more than happy to spend a few minutes chatting with you and learning more about why you're interested in this program or any questions that you might have. All right, hopefully this was helpful, and I just want to thank you again for thinking about our program, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.